Before there was Jay, or David, or Johnny, or Oprah, or Phil, there was
Joe Franklin. Woo!
We got a show for you.
From the great to the grateful, everyone has taken a seat on Joe Franklin's couch. Now, after 43 years on TV, he's about to sign off. What's his secret?
The main ingredient is sincerity. And once you learn to fake that, then you got it made.
From Still Ahead on Day One, he was lampooned by Billy Crystal.
Today, my friends, a distinguished medal-winning panel, my friends.
But after 43 years on the air, talk show legend Joe Franklin gets the last laugh. And
now a follow-up to a story we reported recently on Day One. We roasted the last-place New York Mets a few weeks ago. Since then, they've continued to have troubles, this time off the field, with Mets outfielder Vince Coleman charged with lobbing a firecracker at a group of fans in Los Angeles. Coleman has apologized. On the field, though, things are looking up. And pitcher Anthony Young, who made baseball history by losing a record 27 games in a row,
and he drives it down the right field line,
finally got a win. When it happened, his teammates acted as if he'd won the World Series.
Day One will continue after this from our ABC stations.
Late at night when you're channel surfing through the sea of old movies and TV reruns and infomercials on superstations and cable, you may have happened upon what can only be called a television phenomenon. It is the oldest and possibly the oddest talk show on the air, and its star is a fellow named Joe Franklin. Now, if you haven't yet had the privilege of meeting him, this is your chance, and just in time, because 5 days from now, Joe Franklin takes his television show off the air. But before that happens, we thought we'd let him take a bow. Here's Jeff Greenfield.
When you talk about Joe Franklin, you're talking about a man that's a legend in his own time. Joe's been on the air for 43 years. He's the greatest talk show host in the world, not in the nation, but in the world. My man, your man, the people's man, Joe Franklin. Woo! I feel so good, so proud, and so elated to be talking about the one and only Joe Franklin. Woo!
All due respect,
As Joe might say, as Joe will say at a time like this, have we got a show for you, a big one today.
This, as any insomniac can tell you, is Joe Franklin, the man who has become a talk show fixture over more than 4 decades. And throughout those 4 decades, he has led his audience on a journey through the late-night fringes of show business.
Straight to my lover's heart for me.
On any given evening, you might see a once famous singer,
And the star of stars. Could I shake your hand, Bobby, and say, it's a pleasure?
a once famous child movie star, the world's fastest painter,
Honoring the Joe Franklin Show. Here it is.
a ventriloquist of startlingly elusive ability,
Otto Peterson and his sex-crazed wooden dummy.
Your show's terrific, Joe. I got insomnia, you know, and watch this show, I go right out.
People like my show because they're easy to please.
You
I've got
put
that.
more people to sleep than Dr. Kevorkian, I'll
That's
tell
right.
you.
In this late-night galaxy of flickering stars, Joe is clearly at the center of the universe.
My show is me. I want the audience just to watch to see Joe Franklin. I figure if I'm playing the spoons on my head or if I'm chatting with the biggest superstar or megastar in the world, doesn't matter. My audience watches to see me. The world's longest-running talk show. This one. We're not going to quit until we get it right.
Well, he must have gotten it right. This Friday night, Joe Franklin's last TV show will air.
Don't forget to talk over the phone by 10 o'clock.
And with typical flair, Joe turned his office into the site of a public relations stunt in the guise of an audition.
I've been fascinated by the expression, it's not over until the fat lady sings. And I think this is the propitious time. The fat lady is going to sing on the Joe Franklin finale.
Little Jackie Horner sits in the corner. He don't go nowhere. What do I care? I'm every mountain.
Before you came, my time was running low. Can everybody see me out there?
Oh, yeah.
It is an offbeat finale to one of the single most unusual show business careers imaginable. It began with Joe dropping out of college some 43 years ago to try to make it in broadcasting, at a time when Joe and television were young together. Was it very hard at the beginning to get good guests?
About the second or third week, the word got out that there was a new talk show in town. I think I was the only talk show in town, and I'd hear every day from the movie studios. The PR men would come down with Kim Novak, with Fred McMurray, with John Wayne. That's a happy memory of an era.
Over the years, Franklin claims, every major show business star has been on his show, and he may just be right.
That my guest is my very #1 favorite entertainer.
First you put your 2 knees close up tight, and then you wiggle to the left, and then you wiggle to the right.
Of all the people who kind of symbolize the kind of people that you find immortal, I mean, Bing Crosby's right at the top of your list, isn't he?
The day he walked toward me, I melted. You know, that I only thought of Bing as being mechanically reproduced. I thought of Bing on film or radio or records or movies or television, but when he walked toward me, I melted.
And just when you think that your man is great, you find that he's a think, and then you haul your freight.
Who made that up?
I threw in that line, yeah.
The funny thing about him is that everybody has been on his show. He made everybody. Woody Allen, Mia Farrow, Liza Minnelli. They've all been on his show. They all got their start through Joe.
What you did for me as a new entertainer starting out at age 26 or whatever, I'm 51 now, I mean, I have to come back here and say thank you.
Bill, I will never forget those words. You don't, nobody...
Are you in the position a little bit like somebody who discovers people on the way up, then they get very big and they're too busy for you sometimes?
I would say always, 9 out of 10. And I guess it's human nature. I don't want to come back, because when they see me, they're reminded of the times when they were broke. And even though it's shallow, I guess, maybe I'd be the same. Maybe I wouldn't want to be reminded either of those days.
As the years went by, things changed. Joe Franklin moved from show business's main street to a side street. His program was pushed into the wee small hours of the morning. He became a man so identified with the past that the stars of the present more and more passed him by. In your heart, when you look at when you started, and do you ever think, I should have been Carson, I should have been Donahue, I should have been whoever?
I've always analyzed that in my mind and said to myself, maybe I'm not the top 2 or 3, but there are thousands more behind me. So I've more than got my niche.
You'll be so lonely when you go away.
There are those who are still drawn to his niche.
Oh, how terrible.
I feel so lonely.
I feel so lonely.
Who crowd into his office every day.
Boy, you like belly dancers?
Looking for Joe to give them one small taste of the fame they never had, or had once, briefly, very long ago.
Yell for the lavender once. Do it for me.
Lavender, I have spoken.
Mammy Yoakum.
You want to hear a very sad story? I will my body to science, and science is contesting the will.
Joe Franklin Johnson.
Listen, I got a very heavy meeting going on here, but tell him let's do 5 minutes. Oh, please, tell him, don't forget, I appreciate it. Critical, boss. Listen, Cynthia, I got my doctor here spraying my throat. Call me about 5 o'clock, I'll be alone, okay? Don't forget. People sometimes say, what's the secret of longevity in my field where the mortality rate is so staggering? There have been about 400 talk show hosts in New York City alone who came and went since I began. So I started the phrase that the main ingredient is sincerity. And once you learn to fake that, then you got it made.
Listen to Joe introduce his guests, and you know he has learned that lesson very, very well.
Hollywood's #1 child star. His playing puts goosebumps on your goosebumps, you know what I'm saying? It's snowballing, it's mushrooming, it's palpitating.
Nobody is too washed up, too burnt out, too much of a has-been or never will be for Joe not to say.
Incisive, penetrating, and all those award-winning words, and his name is Jeff Greenfield.
To be a guest on the Joe Franklin Show is to look up and find yourself through the looking glass, somewhere out beyond the asteroid belt. 1 minute, you're answering perfectly sensible questions.
Were you surprised when Mr. Stephanopoulos was sort of relocated or pushed?
The next minute, you are with a comedian, a heavy metal rock musician, and the rock band's manager, who just happens to be...
This is Bobby Buttafuoco. He's the manager of the group.
Bobby, are you part owner of that famous auto body shop?
Yes, I am.
That's right, the brother of Joey Buttafuoco, of Amy Fisher infamy. People sometimes look at you as camp or strange or offbeat, or I don't even know what the right word is.
Bizarre.
Bizarre's good. Bizarre is good.
I go out of my way to encourage that camp image or that kinkiness. I've taught people such as Billy Crystal how to do me.
Today, my friends, a distinguished medal-winning panel, my friends. On the far end, Jackie Rogers Jr., a great albino performer, New York City fireman extraordinaire, Dan Halloran, my friends.
Indeed, for all of his years on the air, more people probably know Joe Franklin as the target of Billy Crystal's parody on Saturday Night Live.
Dan, have you ever seen an albino performer before?
Not that I know of, Joe.
But beyond all this cheerful lunacy, there is the other part of Joe Franklin's world, the part that reflects his heart and soul, the man whose work, whose whole life, is engulfed by the past. There must have been a time when you said, wait a minute, this is me.
Me was the guy who was lucky enough to be in love with the past and to do a whole radio and TV career based on nostalgia.
And I know what used to be over there, which was Hubert's Police. If you walk with Joe through the once glittering, now nearly shuttered streets of Times Square, you'll be in for a surprise. People here greet him not as a figure of fun, but as an authentic, accessible TV star.
Oh, you're a good man. You got a good show.
You always had good taste.
You've been about a 40-year man in that job, man.
Yeah, at least.
When this last show ends and the remote control flips the TV off, what memory do you want them to have of this show and of you? What do you want them to remember about it?
That I was real. I was, as we said, not make-believe, not rehearsed. Everything is so slick and precision and, you know, written out. I'm the last one who's from the bones. Okay, boss, you happy?
Boss, you look great. I love that song with Paul Lynch. That was great.